Gentlemen, this is a story that came out in the Washington Post August 7th, 2018, on the ground in Philly's heroin scene. This is a reporter. His name is Christopher Moroff, and he's a journalist in Philadelphia that goes into the Kensington neighborhood. And the Kensington neighborhood is where your biggest opioid and heroin and fentanyl abusers are. So he goes out there and give the stories firsthand of what's going on. So instead, we get a lot of news stories, especially at the biggest publications that are regurgitating fifth and sixth and seventh hand perspectives on opioid, which means you miss these little indicators. And he's talking about his work on the drug story. Street drugs are being adulterated in dangerous ways, like fentanyl added to cocaine, which we're not sure why. One media outlet reports a single death from contaminated drugs. The other re-reports the same story. And the next thing you know, we have this huge trend of cocaine adulterated with fentanyl. But if you're not out there, you don't know the culture, which means you don't know the right questions to ask. One of those questions is, are you testing the drugs, or are you basing this theory on postmortem toxicology? Because people use opioids and cocaine together on purpose. It's called speedballing. There's more of it now than ever in Philadelphia, which I'm not surprised. The last time I went out to Kensington, the paraphernalia and needles were all over the ground. I mean, it's almost like everywhere you step, there are needles everywhere. It's really bad. A lot of the concurrent cocaine and heroin use, you do your own contaminant test of street drugs using chemical reagent test strips that turn a certain color if fentanyl is present in a mixture. Tell me about your reason. So that's the interview question. That originally started as the journalistic mission based on a policy change that happened in Philly. We had a place called El Campamento, which was a long-established outdoor user camp, secluded by the Conrail train tracks in the mostly Latino stretch of West Kensington. This was the old heroin market, where families had been in trade for decades. The city started catching flack for it, and then Dr. Oz came here because of a Philly Inquirer article that used the phrase heroin hellscape in the headlines. He toured the camp with drug enforcement agents. So Dr. Oz apparently went out there to do a story. After that, the city shut down the camp and made a big deal out of it. But the corners in that area had been there forever. But yeah, drugs are terrible in that area. And I know that firsthand from going over there even years ago. Going over there, drugs are extremely bad in that one area. Okay, when they shut down the camps, it pushed a lot of the trade and the users eastward into areas that were not established, disciplined markets. For some reason, the Latino community here just got this market right. They're very businesslike. in the 90s, if you had a problem, there was a manager you could complain to. It was a legit as the black market could be. The city disrupted this. As a result, I knew there was a lot of freelancer corner popping up. And, and this is why the cops will tell you if they arrest one drug dealer, 15 more will crop up. And that's the truth. And that's why they have not been able to get this thing under control for that reason. Every time they round up a few drug dealers, people selling or distributing these drugs, you can best believe by the next day, 15 more have cropped up on the streets doing the same thing. These folks, because of the drugs, they can't get jobs. So they don't care. They'll take the risk on selling drugs on the street. Okay, I started testing because I had this hypothesis that breaking down these organizations from the top, which is the law enforcement strategy, makes the drugs more dangerous and the culture more violent. I started testing bags on the other side of Kensington Avenue from corners that I knew did not exist before and comparing them to the ones on the old side and trying to see if they were selling more fentanyl. I had this idea that if you were a young buck who was starting out, you might not have the connection that the old suppliers had, kilos of heroin coming up along the South and that Atlantic and Atlanta. Okay, so there's a lot of, what he means is there's a lot of drug dealers out of the Atlanta area, and many of them are Mexicans that are dealing out of that area. And the drugs actually make their way up the East Coast to places like Philly and Connecticut and New York from the South. That's how most of the drugs are getting here in this area. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of the drugs up and down the East Coast is coming out of the Southeast. There's fentanyl all over Philadelphia, but almost every bag that has fentanyl without also containing some heroin has come from these new corners. Okay. So again, believe it or not, dealing is going as strong as drug use in this country. So I know the president was talking about executing the dealers. That's not going to really do anything. It really isn't. You already got the death penalty in this country, and it's not stopping one murder. It's not stopping anybody from murdering other people. And it's not going to stop these people from dealing drugs. It's counterproductive. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen, of this reporter's account of the heroin scene in Philadelphia and the Kensington area. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I will see you on the next video. Peace, family.